around and
I appreciate the position you're in then, and I'll try and follow all the points you make that you need to make to protect yourself.
sure.
But yeah, sure. So I pick up information about Sharia law, and I get news as I've just described the news that I've heard. And I wanted to get like a sounding board to really flesh out the Islamic position in the UK and hear if people respond the same way as I do, to hear that the punishment of adultery in the Taliban, because one version could be you completely renounce the Taliban and say they're despicable terrorist type people, or you could sort of say, no, we believe that's a legitimate form of governance. As you were saying, you believe maybe in society, because it is such a detrimental harm, you believe in such a brutal punishment of that crime. But like I'm saying, I'm just trying to sound out because I find it such a abhorrent practice.
Mm-hmm. Firstly, what's your understanding of Sharia law? Like, what do you understand? Like, give me some examples of laws that you've heard or that you're familiar with.
Not really many. Like I say, I come here in an explorational manner. And I've got my little news story, and I don't want to become far right and just hate all Muslims or whatever. I want to genuinely engage with the belief systems that you have, and I want to sort of match and be like, oh look, morality, try and understand what a nice nation is.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, that's how it should be, to be honest.
Yeah.
My name is Zishan. What's your name?
Jamie.
Nice to meet you, Jamie. And these sorts of discussions are incredibly important because in the divisive society that we're living in, certain differences do get highlighted more than other differences. Yeah. Sharia law in particular, and let's hope, of course, there is a dialogue.
Yeah.
When it comes to Sharia law, smiling at somebody is considered Sharia law. Giving charity is considered Sharia law. Giving food to one's neighbor, not making too much noise that the neighbor is disturbed, is regarded as Sharia law. So there's different aspects of Sharia law. Of course, there are the hudud punishments that you're referring to as well when it comes to these sorts of things.
Yeah, so I think I do come on a very single track as well, that I do want to contend on, which is this specific issue of stoning because of adultery.
That's fine, we'll stick with that.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to give you an overview because some people think just these 3-4 punishments is Sharia law. But Sharia law, it's just smiling at somebody is considered is a part of Sharia law.
That's fair enough.
So when it comes to adultery, because you brought that up, I want to address that head on. If 2 people are seen to have intercourse by 4 witnesses, and these 4 witnesses can see the penis go inside the vagina, that's 4 people. Now, that's incredibly difficult to do.
Of course.
Unless somebody is having sex in public, where people are seeing that entering, where we're talking about adults, we're talking about children, we're talking about vulnerable people in society.
Yeah, this is way
So if 4 people, now if out of those 4 people, Jamie, 1 person says, I was waiting for them.
Yeah.
So there's something, maybe I'm mispronouncing, called voyeurism.
Yes.
Yeah, where people watch other people, wait for them to have intercourse. That person is not regarded as a legitimate witness, and that person will be discarded from this discussion. Yeah. In fact, he'll be punished.
Sure.
Yeah. So 4 people that are witnessing this taking place, that is something that will be punishable in that regard because of the incredible detriment it's having to the women, it's having to the kids, it's happening in this regard. Yeah.
So just to understand, have I misunderstood the idea of this adultery situation? Is this regarding to then public sex and intercourse? Because my understanding would be more that this law would, let's say a man and a wife are privately married in their home, they're living their lives, and it comes to be understood that she has had an affair, she's gone to another man's house and had sex in private quarters. My understanding would be, as long as that has been evidenced.
Yeah, you've misunderstood it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
So if this fine, then if this does not get applied in that scenario,
no, it doesn't. You have to have 4 witnesses because, like you're probably thinking as well, sometimes the woman can be abusive to the husband, and sometimes the husband can be abusive to the woman. In cases that you've heard, women are accusing men of rape.
Yeah,
but there's no evidence. But the British law will have to arrest the man. So the point that I'm trying to say is it can be misapplied if it's done in private means and there's no one else there. No, it's 4 people that are seeing it, which implies that it's being done in
That's a
public.
way different situation to what I was imagining.
Yeah.
I was imagining like a family living a life.
No.
The woman goes to another house. Let's say she walks past 4 people, goes into the house, comes out after 5 minutes, and and then goes back home. I would, if the punishment is applied there, that's what I was speaking about. But in your scenario, it's different. And so, thanks for letting me know.
No.
Yeah, cheers.
So, Jamie, you were talking about now that we've dealt with that point. Tell me your position with regards to atheism, and where are you at this moment in your life, and why you've reached that position at the
I
moment.
think atheism is like rock and roll, I like to have fun and just go out there and do whatever the hell I like. I don't want to harm anyone, but I want to have the hedonistic life. I want to get as much pleasure as I can, not harm anyone, and be real great.
Okay.
And I don't want no God restricting me and having imaginary psychosis all the time.
Right.
I want to be trying to engage with my own immediate happiness.
Okay. So when it comes to the universe, how do you think the universe came to be?
Yeah.
What's the creation story that you kind of
It's a
understand?
Big Bang creationist story. So my idea is that time and space came out of, let's call it a quantum fluctuation, but we have a very little understanding of prior to that moment that time and space came into existence. And then the rules of physics that I understand them as is what where I exist within, and that's how I view my story.
Okay. Do you believe that that's the fixed story, or do you believe that that could change tomorrow when we have different observations?
I believe that could change with different observations, different interpretations of the evidence that we can generate. Yeah.
So when it comes to us, do you believe that we are just random particles that have come together, unconscious, unguided, materialistic, and there's no kind of...
Yeah, so I think there's two things here. One of them is, yes, I do believe the forces of physical moments and evolution, so matter coagulating in specific ways that follow specific physical rules and principles. That is how I believe we came to exist. However, I do believe there is an oddness to consciousness. And so I believe evolution can explain a hell of a lot, and my story is very good at explaining a hell of a lot, but consciousness is a very unknown, complicated thing at the moment.
That's why they call it the hard problem of consciousness, isn't it? Okay, so do you believe through the Big Bang, what are you attributing the kind of creative element to? Obviously there's an element of design to us and to what you see around you as well.
Yeah.
So what are you actually attributing this creative force to? Is it to forces? Is it through chance?
Yeah.
Or is it through something else?
I think so. Two sides. I'll take the second side first, which I think is almost like mathematical principles. That's what I think would generate this creative element, or maybe information collection, maybe I would call it something like that. I think it's a byproduct of running the system. So it's almost like it's something like an inevitability of the way physical laws can correlate. I've got an example. Imagine a road that goes along a narrow wooded with hedges area. Imagine you send a couple of cars down there and it looks a bit scruffy. Then you send a couple of lorries down there for 6 months. Eventually you'll see a square border to the foliage. And so that is the creative force. It is a byproduct of the action. Do you know what I mean? It looks like there's information there because there's a square border, but it's a byproduct of the lorry going through. The lorry didn't decide.
So it's chance.
Not so much chance, it's more
because cars going through and foliage being created is chance upon chance upon chance upon chance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is pretty much predication of evolution, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't want to strawman you,
No.
but would you then say that your idea comes down to this point that it is chance as the primary kind of force that has created
something? I think there's another important principle at play here, which is, imagine you had 6 bottles lined up on a wall, and you're randomly shooting, and so sometimes you will hit some bottles. There's two things there: the random shooting of the bottle and the strength of each bottle. Let's say a bottle, some of them wouldn't smash and some of them would smash. You see, there's a randomness to it. But there's also, it's going to weed out the smashable bottles, and eventually only the ones that aren't smashed remain. And so there is a randomness to the scenario, but there's also an inherent property that randomness is like generating. Do you know what I mean? Like it's allowing.
What would you say?
Generating.
Okay.
It's allowing the ones that don't smash to exist because there's a property of the bottom.
I get what you're alluding to,
Yeah.
but I'm seeing an overlap of something that has will, that has like direction,
Yeah.
as opposed to something that is just completely like the rolling of a dice.
Yeah.
For example, there's like a natural selection that you're saying with
Yes,
regards to the bottles, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to get an overview of your thing. So,
Go over there in the comments facing this way.
would you say that you're a skeptic, or would you say that? I mean, you believe that you exist.
Well, that's a bit philosophical for me, you know. Like we can have all sorts of outlandish theories, can't we? Like solipsism can say none of you have consciousness, and it's irrefutable, I believe. But I don't live my life like that, and I don't put too much belief into it. So I just sort of like crack on with life and try and have a good time.
That's good. You
Cheers.
just can't have a good time if you don't exist. You know, it'd be incredibly difficult to do that when that's the preface you have to give to your resume each time when you're introducing yourself. Hello, my name's Jamie. I don't exist. I don't think you exist either. Let's hope this day goes well. So, so you believe you exist. You believe that the people around you exist. Let's delve a bit into philosophy, because of course when it comes to metaphysics, science doesn't claim to answer the metaphysical
True.
elements. You believe that we are dependent as opposed to independent?
I've heard this idea before. I think it's a bit of a slippery slope because
Let me just quickly summarize it. I'll do it in like a minute,
Sure.
and then you can just jump in.
Alright.
So the argument is that we as human beings and what we see around us are dependent, and you can't, and because we're depending on something else, that's depending on something else, you can't have an infinite regress of dependent things.
Yeah.
So that leads to philosophically a necessary existence. But that's pretty much like a nutshell. So
Yeah.
what's the?
I think I would say, as I said, in my story of the universe, it goes from the creation of time and space. And prior to that, our rules absolutely fall down. We don't understand even the idea of what is prior to it. It doesn't even make sense to say before the Big Bang, because time and space was created. Yeah? We have inclinations that quantum physics behaves in radically illogical manners to our normal intuition. So I believe prior to the Big Bang can be there's like no holds barred for what the logical principles could be. It's absolutely unknown. So any approach whereby you sort of try and enter into that pre-universe state and say, because of dependence and interdependence, therefore this and this, that doesn't fly. That currency might not be able to buy that theory. So that's where I stand. I've just come in.
I've heard this position a couple of times.
Oh, wow. I thought it was original.
No, it's a couple of times. But so in essence, you're saying that pre-Big Bang, you don't know about
All
the
bets are off. Yes.
yeah, like law of non-contradiction that can apply. Like you can have a squared circle.
Sure.
You can have like really absurd, illogical, silly things.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: the argument is premised on the fact that an inference can't be made. Whilst Jamie, I would say that the theories that you rely upon, for example, evolution,
Yeah.
evolution is not something that's observed. There's you can't
I can model it in a computer.
you can model it in a computer, but in terms of observation, you can't see something evolve in front of you.
Yes, I can. Like
Go
I say,
ahead.
if I model it in a computer, I can see that system evolve.
Yeah, so you're seeing a computer-generated,
Yeah.
data-based approach. You're not observing it through your five senses, are you?
Okay. No. Okay, what about maybe bacteria? I can see bacteria evolve.
No, bacteria. There's a difference between evolution and natural selection. A lot of people don't have an issue with natural selection per se. For example, like the antibiotic, the way antibiotics work.
Yes.
Yeah, but then to extrapolate that to interspecies and to say that they're all connected in a tree of life, that's evolution. So sometimes the two get conflated, and that's not a fair kind of thing to make. So where you would see natural selection taking place, to say that therefore it's like homology. Yeah, it's homology, that just because these two species or these two creatures share similar genes or share a similar skull structure, therefore they were evolved from each other.
Yeah.
So that's an inference that's being made, isn't it? That's what
Yeah,
I'm
sure,
saying.
yeah.
The claim that someone's observing evolution taking place,
Yeah.
i.e. predicated in the tree of life,
Yeah.
that's not something you can observe. That's not something that's observed. Yes, you will take the data.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you want to jump back in?
I was going to go, I think, down the same line that you were just about to talk about,
Yeah.
which is the idea of like fossils or any sort of remaining data that you were
Yeah.
about. I was going to give a specific example about maybe a dolphin and the skull shape with the nostrils retreating to the head, and we have like a series of data at different stratas of the Earth's life type thing, and so we can build a model based on data. True, we're not directly observing it, but we
Yeah.
are getting some sort of empirical information.
Empirical inference is being made here, because just like you've got the tree of life, there's another theory called the bushel of life as well.
Yeah.
Just like you've got Darwinian evolution, you've got Lamarckian evolution, and you've got evolution by natural genetic engineering, etc., etc. So there's loads of interpretation of that data with regards to evolution as well. So to say that just because these two look similar, therefore it proves, that's why I said there's the issue of homology taking place over here as well. So again, evolution relies on inference.
Yeah.
Big Bang relies on inference.
Yeah.
Did you want to jump in with Big Bang?
Yeah, please. Yeah, not the Big Bang, about the evolution.
Right.
Like, I will state that I'm probably at the level of pop evolution I am. And so maybe there are like these competing claims on the evidence that is about. I just don't really get that impression. I really think I would speak of it in a different manner. I would say the body of evidence and the theories that infer from that data, they're really actually quite rigid to new data. Like, they are really good at not just crumbling under like a tide of
At the moment.
Yeah, at the moment, yeah. Like,
the moment.
but like, I think they really are really quite strong. Maybe there are like a few creases to iron out, and maybe there's a few different interpretations where you can skew the lens a little bit. But generally, I think it's a really. This is my feeling. As I'm not an evolutionist.
Yeah.
I just get a real feeling.
So feeling, it's a strong feeling. It's even borderlining on belief. It's a belief of yours.
Yeah, I suppose some of it is, but I like to try and get as much information as I can from experts on the subject matter. I try and like understand it from its fundamentals, its rudiments, and its.
I can totally
building up.
appreciate
There's
that.
more proof against it than there is for it.
Really?
Like for Lucy. They found Lucy. You know Lucy, right?
Yeah.
Evolution from a monkey to a human or whatever. Found maybe 100 kilometers away from one another.
Yeah.
Fits in a little box, and they don't even match.
Yeah.
Even the Cambrian, the Cambrian explosion, the Cambrian explosion as well that took place. There are definitely holes, but the point is, all of this is predicated on a process called induction. Yeah, and induction is something which is based upon your limited observations.
Yeah.
Naturally, we haven't excavated, everywhere,
No.
and we're constantly, learning more and more. That's why you've got subscriptions to the Nature Journal and subscription to Science Journal and all of this sort of stuff. And it's year by year, and that's why we also have paradigm shifts as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you've got Newtonian physics that got superseded by Einsteinian physics and the quantum mechanics, and we're probably going to see more and more and more and more. So induction, and that's why even Dawkins said in Devers Chaplin as well, if tomorrow we come across more observations, we could discard what we know.
Yeah.
So
I think I'm going to round out this conversation. I'm just going to make one point. Yeah? Like I say, my evolution is on the level of pop psychology.
Yeah.
I just want to get your opinion on something. Let's say
Yes.
there was a very, very large field. Yeah, at the north end of the field it's very cold, and at the south end of the field it's very warm. Yeah, let's say there's a herd of cows in the center. Yeah, and they're just milling around, reproducing and eating food and such. And as they sort of grow and migrate and such, they sort of change.
Adapt.
Yeah, they adapt to their environment in a certain way. If you go north, they get a bit more hairy, and if they go south, they lose that. And
Pre-programmed.
do you sort of like that idea? It looks really cool, doesn't it? Do you reckon at the end of a little
Adaptation
while,
versus,
you'll see
evolution.
like different beings? And I reckon if you wait long enough, maybe they'll diverge even further until you could even say they're almost different categories, different species.
So in biology, this is called adaptation. You got allopathic and allopatric and sympatric.
Sure.
Yeah, which is again when you've got like a mountain, it separates two species,
Yeah.
and then again they adapt. So that's the distinction that I made earlier as well. To say to then take adaptation and to extrapolate it into the theory of evolution, which incorporates the tree of life, that's something that's completely different and requires a heavy amount of evidence, which again, some people will argue that it hasn't been provided, some will argue that it has been provided. But regardless, the point that I was making initially was whether it's Big Bang, whether it's evolution, whether it's the fact that South America and Africa used to be one continent, it's all based upon inference. And when it comes to inferring about things like this, like before, obviously Christianity had a very heavy impact on, say, the UK and Galileo and these guys. But then completely different theories came, that we are not the center of the universe, that God, according to them, didn't create us. You had evolution. So the point that I'm trying to say is, when it comes to every other field of science, we have no issue saying, you know what, let's infer. Let's look at the body of evidence and let's make an inference to the best explanation. But when it comes to the universe, we have a very defeatist mentality. When it comes to quantum mechanics, was it Michio Kaku? He will bring up string theory, and he will bring up the most, there's not just, was it 3 dimensions? There's 11 dimensions, and they're all on strings, these little particles. So they will entertain these things till the cows come home. But when it comes to the universe and where it came from, whoa. Because, Jamie, I would say one other thing as well. When time equaled 0, and the universe started, there was still a relationship of causation taking place.
Well, I think that might be outside of my pay grade, but
think about it though.
Of course, always.
Just based upon what I'm saying, t equals 0, and you had the universe. They had to have a causal relationship for the Big Bang to even take place. So the law of non-contradiction, causation, it's something that it's rather than being a posteriori, i.e., we need to know this in order for us to have this understanding. I would say it's a priori. That you have to have understanding of the law of non-contradiction, of causation, to even have understanding of the way the most basic of things work. And I think you want to go. So there were a few things that I just wanted to give you, just something to reflect upon, and maybe we could touch base again some other time. And thank you for approaching me and having a lovely conversation, my friend.
Cheers.
Take care.